super important to make sure that you have that owner's policy coverage to protecting yourself against anything that could potentially happen. The reality is, more than likely, you're not going to need it. The majority of the folks don't need it. It's the person who does that you feel sorry for when they don't have it, because
Right.
you're talking about the American dream, home ownership. You could lose that in the snap of a finger without the protection of something as simple as the title insurance.
I'm Leigh Brown. This is Real Talk. Today we're going to talk about something that is very pernicious, ubiquitous. It's everywhere in real estate, title insurance, but nobody really knows what it is. So Drew Wischhover is with us today to help us understand it a little better, give us some of the reasons you actually do want to have that very important title insurance policy, and share his new book where he's putting some of his life lessons forward. So Drew Wischhover is with us today. I hope you'll enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Why don't you kick it off and tell my audience exactly who you are and where you're located and what you do in and around the real estate world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my name is Drew Wischhover, and I am the owner of Inspired Title Group. We are a title insurance company that is located in Illinois. We are licensed in Illinois, Indiana. We could do deals across the U.S. Title insurance people are like, what is that? I don't understand what that is. It's part of the real estate process that, nobody knows about, all the intricacies of what title insurance is. It's just part of the necessary part of the closing. And so it's definitely not sexy, and it's not something that people, ever really think about, right? And I kind of went, all right, I need to make this different. Because I was constantly competing with, how are you different than Chicago Title or Fidelity, First American, all these names, right? Well, those are the folks who underwrite us. So we're underwritten by these folks, but I wanted to kind of, make this my own and make this different. We're a boutique title company, family owned, small group of, 8 to 10 folks. And the thing that I think is our differentiator is that we give back. And what I mean by that is I just started a not-for-profit called Heroes Helping Heroes. And what we do is every closing that we do, we donate a portion of our proceeds to that charity that is now ours. So I'm really excited about that. And that has really made a little bit of a difference to, getting us recognized and getting us known, because even our underwriters are like, nobody's doing that. That's a great idea. I'm like, all right, great. They're going to steal it. They're going to start doing it. And I'm going to be back to the little guy again, right? So I'm kind of just waiting to see, where this all goes. But I also own a development company. So I'm just a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur who has been in business for 25 plus years doing this. And, I wrote a book. I'm all about mentoring people. And I wrote a book called The 2-Hour Difference, which is from all my coaching days of coaching baseball, having played it as a high school and college athlete, having my boys play it and play in college level as well. I took this time and opportunity during COVID to write this book. And it's about life lessons. It's not about the game of baseball. It's about what life lessons these kids are learning through that tool of baseball. And I kind of just started to recognize that if I applied that practice to my businesses, it's really the same, like putting right butts in the right seats to do the job. And literally, when I kind of took the blinders off my eyes, start practicing that, that's literally what I do now is I run, and coach the businesses and team that I run the same way as I would a baseball team, and guide them in that same structure in the same way. It's really been fun. And, so far, so good.
Okay, well, let's reel that back around because we're in a busy audience and you went a million miles an hour in too many directions. So I'm in North Carolina. We are not a title state. And so
Right.
North Carolina does things differently than other places for real estate. But because of that, we have this huge number of people who move here. They're used to title companies where they came from. For example, California, they come here to an attorney state. And so title looks different. So that's one thing. We could talk about that briefly, but let's actually dig into title insurance because you skated past it really quickly. And we have a lot of consumers that watch the show.
Sure.
And I always want to make sure we honor the people who are not in real estate, but they're interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I've always described title insurance is that it's the thing that if you pay for it, you're probably never going to use it. And if you don't have it, it'll be the biggest expense ever, but it will cover you if you have a major super duper problem. So I'd love for you to tell us how you describe title insurance to a consumer, because The average person only does 3 or 4 real estate transactions in a lifetime, and it shows up as an expense. They pay it, they move on, they don't know what it does. Give us a brief description from your perspective, and then also, I'd love to know the scenario you've encountered as somebody in that side of the business where it was called into duty, so there's a reminder of how
Sure.
valuable it can be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the easiest way that I describe title insurance to the layperson, if you will, is title insurance covers you from everything that happens today backwards. Okay. If you think about insurance, think about health insurance, car insurance, it covers you from the day you get it going forward. If something is going to happen, right? So, whereas title insurance says, I've gone through and we've checked every transfer on that property, everything that has happened, every loan, every lien, anything that has ever taken place, that it has been transferred properly and cleanly so that when you are the actual owner, you have clear and clean title so that you are the rightful owner of that property. So
That's a
it's different than
great.
homeowners insurance. Okay. So remember, homeowners insurance is the contents, like inside the house. Title insurance is the ownership of that property. Okay. It's a big difference. And people sometimes do get those confused. So you pay it one time where, other insurances you pay on a monthly basis. So when you look at that title insurance fee or that potential cost, you're going, it's really not that big of a deal to protect you from some of the horror stories that are out there. And I can certainly share some of those because they do happen. It's not like it's a common thing, but they do happen. I mean, the underwriters it's a public knowledge. You can look at the underwriters to show how much they've paid out in claims in a year. And it's a big number. And you're going, from what? What would be a claim that I would have to use my title insurance policy? An example, if you have a survey, right, and it tells you what the boundary lines are of your property. If your neighbor's property is encroaching on yours, okay, you have a right to tell them, take that fence down. That's my property. And this can become a real, rift between the neighbors. Well, who's going to cover you for that, all those legal expenses? Your title insurance policy. Okay. Now that's a simple, easy one. Take a different one where, you just bought your house and the prior owner, okay, it's from a divorce. And the seller is the individual who was, prior married, sells you the house, but never really got the signature from the divorcee. They have a right to that property still because they homestead rights, they lived in it. They can come back and say, I own 50% of your house. Well, what does that mean? I mean, if your house is $200,000, they have $100,000 worth of value to your home. So now you have to bring in the legal teams to fight this and get this thing rectified. That's going to be money out of your pocket if you're not insured. If you are insured, that's where the title policy comes into play and will, support you in all of those things. Now, those things do happen because, we live in a world of litigious world. Illinois is also an attorney state where the attorneys dictate where the title is going to be going. So we're
Right.
very aware of how this is directed. But, living in a litigious world, you can sue anybody for anything, anytime. And so something as simple as that, it's a rightful act for that individual to come back and say, hey, I never signed off on the deed. I have 50% of this ownership. So it is a necessary part of the process. And as I said, the expense of it, it's not that large. It's not that great for the protection that you're afforded with it.
Well, and especially when you consider how many people have been through multiple marriages because divorces can mean people do and don't sign correctly. Then you have all the home equity lines and refinances and paperwork that doesn't get done correctly. I think it's becoming more and more important as people's lives get more and more complicated. It's not the world of our grandparents where they lived in a house for 50 years and paid cash for it. Those days are primarily gone. And so that's where it does become really important. And then, of course, when you're looking at title companies have different relationships with houses and with buyers and sellers with the way closings are set up. And so what do you say to somebody coming from a title state to an attorney state to help them understand the difference? I mean, obviously, it's cheaper in an attorney state because we don't have the hefty expenses that exist in some of the other states. But what's your way of explaining it as somebody in the title side?
You want to be protected no matter what the process is, whether you're in a title state or an attorney state. I mean, you want to make sure that you're afforded this protection
Right.
because we're human. Things get missed, accidents happen, especially today. Property selling is so much different than it, like you said, it used to be. There are so many more things that are on property titles now that ever have been. There's so many different fraudulent ways that are out there. If you
Hmm.
think about our industry, we are the biggest attacked industry for fraud because we're transferring the most amount of money in a
Right.
transaction, right? So if anybody is going to come in and commit wire fraud, they're going to do it, transaction of buying or selling a home, even in a refinance. They capture the wire instructions. So I think it's super important to make sure that you have that owner's policy coverage to protecting yourself against anything that could potentially happen. And like you've indicated, the reality is more than likely you're not going to need it. The majority of the folks don't need it. It's the person who does that you feel sorry for when they don't have it, because
Right.
you're talking about the American dream, home ownership. You could lose that in the snap of a finger without the protection of something as simple as the title insurance, and spending $300,000-400,000 for a house, spending $2,000 for an owner's policy is it's not even negotiable.
Well, and it's going to be required by your lender if you're getting a mortgage. But we always
100%.
recommend too, if you're buying a house, then if your lender is only doing coverage for themselves, you make sure
Right.
you get the coverage for what you have in the house, which is called owner's coverage. And I'd love for you really briefly before we change gears here to give our real estate professionals a tiny education that many of them need, because in title insurance world, you have the coverage, which is offered most of the time, that standard coverage, but there's enhanced coverage. And I have found there are very few attorneys who are explaining that there is an enhanced coverage option, and it's generally pennies on the dollar. Could you please give our agents out there an explainer so they can take this forward to their clients?
Yeah. So I'll start with the basics too. There's two policies typically issued. There's a loan policy and an owner's policy. And the loan policy covers the lender. So if there's a lender in the transaction, they want to make sure that they're in the first lien position, meaning that there are no other mortgages that are going to impede their ability if they had to foreclose on that property. Okay. So they're 100% going to be asking to be covered if there's a loan. Okay. Now, I always say, if they're going to be covered, why wouldn't you want to be covered? I mean,
Exactly.
what makes you different than them? I mean, they're making this loan to you for, $200,000, and they want to make sure they're protected. Well, you as owner would then get a owner's policy, which is protecting you. Now, again, don't misunderstand it. It's not homeowners insurance. It's owner's title insurance. So there's a loan policy and an owner's policy. Now, there are enhanced coverages within there which allow some differences for people's things that happen after you own it. Okay. Now, the extended coverage policies protect you a little bit more. All right. The standard policies are the basic language that says, hey, what's in here, what's in here. The exceptions are not part of the policy, and things that the title insurance companies are not going to protect you against. But then the enhanced coverage allows some of those things if there's a lien that is recorded, like in between from the time that you close to the time that your deed and mortgage get recorded. If something happens in that gap, it would be covered, because here again, we're looking at dates and things that happened prior to. So we're saying that everything up till today's date, you're cool, everything's good, go ahead and close on that house. Well, wait a minute. A lien popped up between the time that we closed and that we recorded our mortgage. Whose is that? Well, the policy will cover that if you have the extended coverage. So it's just kind of shooting that gap period. And that became really a big thing through COVID, because a
Right.
lot of the counties, and they were so far behind with their recording and their reporting of this. So like these effective dates on policies were months and months out. So we had to do something. The industry had to do something to protect the parties, because interestingly enough, we were a necessary party. When the world shut down, we didn't. People were still buying and selling homes.
Right.
We were still doing transactions, and they had to figure out a way that how are we going to do this and cover this gap? Now, that gap was larger than what we're talking about now with the, enhanced coverages. But that is primarily kind of where that started. And because there were incidences where mechanics liens would pop up in between, or there was maybe a judgment that would pop up, or another lien that got recorded, and you're going, uh-oh, that's not mine though. Yeah, well, it is now. You inherited it. You bought the property. So if it transfers with the property, it becomes yours. But knowing that is an option out there, yeah, and there's not the additional expense for it is sometimes it's nothing, depending on what you're, because again, depending on the region that you're in the states that you're in, this is very state specific to, across the country. The different rules and laws that govern this, yes, it's overwhelming. But
Now,
know your state.
how about the title theft that's been going on in some parts of the country where the people are fraudulently filing claims and filing deeds? So is that covered by title insurance, or is that going to be outside of this?
Yes, if somebody's, just records a wild deed to the property, it would probably be done through a quitclaim deed, which is the lowest, impactful deed that's out there, because it says is if I own it, then you own it. If I own it, I can sell it to you. But if I don't own it, I'm giving you nothing. It's like, right now I can deed you the Sears Tower. It wouldn't matter because I don't own it, nor do you now. So, but people don't understand that if that happens, they go, oh, look, I own this property. Well, you don't, because the person who gave it to you never did. So the title insurance policy would then, in fact, cover you for that, because that's a fraudulent transaction.
So then people don't need to be buying the title theft coverage that's available out there, like Title Lock and those companies, because like our county here, you can be alerted if somebody tries to file something down at the courthouse on the property, so that the local government is adding in a barrier there, because this is happening all over the country.
All over. Yeah. I love this question too, Leigh, because realistically, I was on a local radio program here, and this was a big topic of conversation. How I easily explained it was somebody to steal your title. Yes, I guess it could happen, but it's not as easy as just, what they're saying on the commercials and things, because what you're doing it by buying this is you're buying a service. Okay. They're just going to alert you. Well, your title insurance policy covers you. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's a service that's saying, oh my gosh, somebody's attacking your title. And like dot, 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 it just ends there. Like, okay, now what do I do? But if you're already covered, if you've got an owner's policy in place, and somebody goes ahead and attacks your title, no big deal, you're covered. So you don't like that. It's just an alert. That extra piece is just saying, oh no, let's make this scary and let's fear the people around that this is going to happen, so we can sell a lot of this. And there's a big difference. So I don't find it to be as, effective as what we're doing and actually issuing a policy to say, look, if that happens, and it could, don't worry about it, because we can go ahead and protect you against that. And the underwriters are going to go ahead and fight that to say, no, that deed that just took place, or that transfer that took place, that's not legit. Okay. That doesn't have any impact.
And of course, if you're in North Carolina, not every county does have those systems in place. So check with your county. I'm in Cabarrus County. We do. So you can always ask your county to copy us. And whatever state you're in, you should see what is available so that you can talk to your buyers and sellers and keep them from spending money that may or may not be helpful to them. Because in some areas, that title lock insurance could be helpful. In others, it may not be. But as always, these programs tend to prey on our senior citizens. So be the person in between. So I wanted to give you just a minute to tell us about your 2-hour difference. And you mentioned you have this book out. Give us 2 takeaways for our people, and then we'll provide the link to it later, but tell them what they might get out of this book that will be helpful in their lives.
I wrote the book, like I said, based on my coaching experience in baseball, and, taking away from the game, when we would be done, whether we won or we lost, you would sit these kids down in the dugout and be able to talk to them about what this means on a bigger scale. Like, you're going to have losses in life. If this is what's going to define you, and this is what's going to impede you from growing or coming back tomorrow, you're going to be running all of your life. You're going to be chasing the thing that's not going to ever happen. So realistically, this afforded me the ability to really bring to the surface and help. This is not to help necessarily, finding baseball coaches or what that's about. It was really meant for a broad audience, whether, there's a lot of single parents out there to, how to look for a good coach, as well as, hey, here's some things to teach and apply maybe in your life going forward. I share things that, is winning equal to success? And the answer to that question is no. Like, just because you're winning does not mean you're successful. And I think that people get this stigma that like I'm winning, so therefore I'm successful. No, I think that the more you fail, the more lessons you learn, the more you get back up and fight. That's experience. Like this gray on my chin is experience. It's not age. It has nothing to do with age, and I continue to deny that. And realistically, it allows us to have these stories and these conversations to share. I was blessed with a team of kids that were just wonderful, and I was invited to two high school graduations, where the boys were valedictorians, and in their
Oh,
valedictorian speeches they had mentioned their experience with their travel baseball team, and with me as a coach, as how this had really molded them to be the, successful adult that they're becoming and like succeed through these things because of what they learned from their travel baseball. And I'm sitting up in the, audience and I'm weeping with, my wife's going, why are you,
of course.
well, did you hear what he just said? Like, I mean, it's wonderful. And there's a couple really great nuggets in the book that, I was able to coach some inner city kids here who just really they loved playing and they just didn't have any direction. They needed structure, they needed guidance. And when I took this on, I was like, this is difficult. You watch at the end of practice, who's going to come pick them up? And it really just pulled at my heartstrings. And so I rallied all these kids and parents together and said, look, they need your support. You guys got to come out here and watch them and support them and breathe some life into them. And when that started happening, we started winning. And it's just like the story gets better. And it's like, it's just such an amazing time in my life. And I blessed that, able to do this. And then more importantly, applying it to, my own life and businesses and how I kind of lead right now.
Wonderful. So we'll include the link to the book and to obviously the title company and your contact
Awesome.
information in the show notes for this episode. What's the last thing you'd like to leave with our audience? The one thing you want them to remember about Drew as we close up our show?
Wow. Well, the one thing to remember about me that, well, it's bigger than us. I mean, here I am. I'm living proof that I am using a business that is not very well known, that is not very talked about, and I'm able to do good things with it. And that good thing is giving back to the community and making a difference. I teach my team every day. It's about something bigger than us. So having this ability this blessing to take these proceeds and putting them into the community and help out. This is why we do it, and I love it every day.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, giving us some more insights into the title world and giving people a new way to think about some things. I appreciate you for coming on the show, Drew.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right, guys, say something nice in the comments, or if you've read the book, tell us something positive about it and check out the show notes. But most importantly, hit the bell to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Well, friends, if that episode made you laugh, think, or shout, "Oh, my, go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on that little tiny bell so you don't miss the next round of Real Talk with Leigh Brown.